Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Our winter theme has been Clown College, 50 years of serious fun. And so we've been looking at individuals who went to Clown College, who taught at Clown College, to really give us an idea of the cultural impact that this incredible program from Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey has really done on comedy, not only for the circus, but for a wider range. Our guest today is Peggy Williams, the class of 1974. And I'm going to make sure we get this absolutely correct. She was the first woman clown graduate who received a contract from Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, and was the only clown on her unit.
That's right.
That's right. So I got it correct this time around on that. So
only female clown.
Female clown. That's right. We had lots of clowns. Still have lots of clowns. Some professional, some not. Right.
That's right.
Peggy was going to tell us, and we're going to start off with how she fell into clowning. And then how she, as she once told me, she was a reformed clown, and how she moved from just clowning to boss clown to assistant program director,
performance director,
mm-hmm. And then to performance director. So we have a very short time to cover a very, very long and illustrious career. So Peggy, when was your first circus experience?
I think when I was a kid, maybe 8 or 9 or 10 years old, a tented circus came to Madison, Wisconsin, and my parents took my brother and I there, and it was, I found out later, Cole Brothers, Clyde Beatty Cole Brothers Circus, in a tent, and it was just amazing until the elephants did their number, and it was so, my brother had hay fever and asthma, so we had to leave halfway through because the dust wasn't good for him. So we left, and I wonder what happened in the second half. So I spent the rest of my life trying to find out. 48 years later, I think I know.
Yes. On that. So you graduated from the University of Wisconsin.
I did. I was studying speech pathology. I had a huge interest in deaf education. That's where I was headed. In that major, and I learned a little bit of sign language there, and I learned a lot about nonverbal communication. And also that year, my senior year was the spring of 1970. That's supposed to be when you finish up with all the easy classes, right? And then you graduate, and it's like supposed to be your easy one. It wasn't easy at all for me. It was the most horrible semester on the UW campus. We had an explosion in the Army Math Research Center. There were anti-war protests. We had tear gas in the classrooms. It was a crazy. The spring of 1970 was the Kent State incident, for any of you who are old enough to. So there was a lot of. It wasn't a clean skate, so they say in the Olympics. So. And I had 1 year left to get my master's, and I was really ready to go on that career track. And a friend of mine read a Parade magazine, and there was a 2-paragraph, about that big of an article that Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Clown College was now accepting female candidates. And he said, "You got to read that." And I looked and I went, "That's for me. I'm out of here." And so at the end of that semester, I did my application with Mr. Ballantyne, who was in charge at that time as the dean. And so I was working trying to pay off my college loans, and I was working in the bookstore, the college bookstore there in Madison. And in those days, they had lots of pillars in the bookstores, and I was stocking freshman Shakespeare books, right? And they had on those pillars, they had the telephones that had the curly, really long, so people like me could go look and see if we had a book in stock. And they paged me and they said, pick up the nearest phone. And it was a phone call to me at my workplace from Mr. Ballantyne. And he said, well, how does it feel to be accepted to Clown College? And I'm like, who is this? Yeah. Because in my year, there were very few auditions. I got in totally by application. So whatever I wrote must have worked, because they didn't have auditions everywhere. They had a couple, but not where I lived. And I was accepted by my application. And I still want world peace. That was one of, what are your goals for life? So that, in writing, in my own hand, I want world peace. So at any rate, I'm still on the phone. All these freshmen are looking for, and I got the little name tag on, the bookstore name tag, and they're waiting because they want to find their books. And I'm like, yes, yes. And I hung up, and I went, I'm going to be a clown. And all these freshmen in the freshman book area like, right? Anyway, that got me into clown college. It was a very exciting phone call from Mr. Ballantyne. He invited me to try this. And but here's what the missing information was. I didn't know there weren't girl clowns. I thought being a clown was being a clown. You could be a man or a woman. I had no idea what was heading my way because of my gender, right? And gender was a huge topic in the 1970s. There was civil rights movement, there's a women's rights movement, the anti-war movement. Everybody had a movement. And it was, and I got caught in a few of them right there, right? So at any rate, that's how I got interested in it. So I went home and told my parents, I'm going to go to clown college. All right, dear. Right. How long is it? And I said, it's I think 10 weeks. And they said, and then you'll come back and you'll resume your master's degree after you come back. I went, yeah, sure. Not yet. Too soon, I think.
Yes. Do you remember any other questions on the application?
I do. I remember it was very unique to the person, right? When was the last time you cried? And I think it was when the freshmen kept asking me for books, and I'm like, I'm out of here, I'm going to be a clown. Oh, no. I think another question was, if you could be anyone, anywhere, at any time, besides yourself, who would that be? And I thought about it, and I thought about ancient times, and then I thought about, two-holers, and I thought all this other stuff, and I didn't want to be ancient, and I didn't know what the future held. I mean, we were trying to get a man on the moon or something like that in the space program. But that was the future in those days. That was where we were all heading, was outer space, right? And I just put down, I just want to be myself. This is a good ride, right? So that was boring. A lot of people wrote all kinds of things, and there was no wrong answers. There were other questions like, are you claustrophobic? See, today that might be considered a mental deficiency or some kind of, but then it meant, would you ever be able to be in the clown car? That's really, or live on a train in a, small space. And I said, no, I have no problem there. Do you take drugs? No. I'm paying for college. How could I afford drugs, right? No, there were all kinds of questions. They were very personal. And I really liked that. And then there was an essay, too, where you could write about what you really want. Why do you want to be a clown? And the real reason I went to clown college, my first initial reason that I had to use on my parents, was that I thought clowns who speak non-verbally, as you can tell, I still talk with my hands. My brother and I do this routine at our family picnics where we have to sit on our hands. We both talk with our hands. We have to sit on our hands, and I'm like, But then he said, So it's just kind of like that. I really wanted to explore nonverbal communication the way clowns talk to an audience. And that, to me, was what I was going to learn. I had no idea what I was in for, and that's a good thing, because it was really hard. It was like boot camp. It was 6 days a week. It was from like 7 in the morning to probably 10 o'clock at night, and wow, and not knowing anything. I had no some people already knew how to juggle, so they had that course up, and I didn't know any of those skills, but I wanted to see how people like Lou Jacobs talk to an audience with their whole story and their body and their hands and their eye contact. That's what I really was there to learn, and it got better. It got better. And then the third day we were doing acrobatics, and I've never been this acrobat. I've never Never will be. I broke my foot on the third day. Oh yeah, because I was just doing a simple cartwheel. It was just not my thing. But you know, in good spirit, you try every course. There was stilt walking, unicycling, juggling, makeup, pantomime, prop building, costume making, how to make a wig. There was all these different things that we were all exposed to. It was a college education in like a couple months. It was amazing. So I broke my foot, and Mr. Ballantyne said, well, we're going to have to send you home because you can't do the classes. You can't do the unicycle because you can't bend your ankle, and you can't do stilts because you got a cast on your leg. And it was just a knee cast down to the floor, you know. And I said, oh, please, I gave up a semester from school. I'm in my pleading case now. I gave up a semester of school. I gave up, you know, the things that I sacrificed to be here. I've already got a 2-month rental on my little apartment that we had to find our own apartments. Other classes had something that was already organized, and they would all stay in the same place with a pool on the beach, and all. It was lovely. We had to find our own places, and I had to rent a bicycle, so I had transportation to school. So it was different. Every year was different. Every year the Clown College expanded and grew and honed itself and had more teachers and specialists, and it was awesome. But we didn't have a lot of specialists. Let me see my teachers, and I have to thank each one of them because they were amazing. Lou Jacobs was there, and he taught us the big ring gags, like the dentist gag and the baseball gag and all these traditional things that circus audiences had probably seen before and looked forward to seeing again. And then there was the clown car, right? How to shove 17 clowns in a hatchback car. And if there's room, you add a midget, right? So there's no room in there, right? So all of those things were part of the experience, and I'm looking at all this, and he said, we're going to have to send you home. And I'm like, no, I was looking at the course curriculum, you know, what we do first thing in the morning. We come in, we work out and stretch and put on our makeup. We wear makeup all day long to find out how bad we are at putting it on and keeping it on without, you know, changing clothes and getting makeup on our costumes and on everything else. It was really exciting, and I said, please let me stay. And he said, well, you won't be eligible for a contract because you can't take all the classes. And I said, fair game. I want to stay. I want to learn everything I can. I won't be in the way. I will be helpful any way I can. I knew how to sew, and that was a critical thing. I knew how to sew. And I would sit in the seats and sew when everybody else was walking stilts, you know. And I would sew their costumes or hem their clown pants or whatever, because everything we had, we didn't have a huge Feld Entertainment wardrobe to choose from those days. We had the local, like the Goodwill shop down on Venice Avenue. It wasn't called Goodwill, but it was secondhand shop, and we went and got stuff there and remade it by hand for specific people, for specific routines. And I got involved in gag writing, and then I had this crisis about being an injured female, and what am I doing for the future females that want to come here, but women can't do this, right? Because it was an experiment to have female clowns. All the clowns that were my mentors who played roles, female roles, they were men in drag. So they were my mentors. My parents were so happy to hear that. Even Lou Jacobs, he did some very funny drags when he was the person pushing the buggy, right? And with the midget inside smoking a cigar, you know, and his beautiful big hands, and how he just told the whole world about how proud he was of his baby, and then the baby blew smoke in his face, and, you know, but his hands were so big it just spoke to the top row. And we tried to emulate that kind of communication. But I was learning a lot about how people move to tell a story, and it was really neat. And it really came in handy when we went to foreign countries where English wasn't the language, and it was amazing how beneficial that kind of, well, we call it pantomime, right? But I didn't know that then. At any rate, so Mr. Ballantyne made a phone call to Mr. Feld and said, okay, let her stay, but she won't be eligible for a contract. And I said, fair deal. Okay, I want to stay. I want to learn everything I can. Then I'll be out of your hair. I'll go back home, right? I didn't want to leave. These people, I'm already in love with all the students, right? And I trooped with so many of them for years. So that's how that started.
So who were your teachers?
My teachers, okay, during Clown College was Lou Jacobs, of course. We had Danny Chapman, who was nearing, and all of them were nearing the end of their careers. They came off the road. Danny Chapman, he specialized, and he taught me a lot of things and actually gave me a few props, to which I had no way to, you just can't go around and buy props in Venice, Florida on a three-wheeler with a cast on your leg. And I didn't know what to look for, but he taught me some simple things that you can do in public relations environments, you know, smaller things, the small tricks. Not for an arena, but I did a lot of PR, and he knew I would because of my gender, right? Because I was a female. I was so not prepared for this, and I'll talk about media in a little bit. But the other people, we had one of the stilt walkers from the show come in and teach us stilts, and of course I didn't connect with that class because my foot was in a cast. There was an acrobatic person who had been in a flying act who taught us tumbling and just traditional tumbling, very simple stuff that might be handy for clowns, but we weren't certainly going to be the top flyer in a teeterboard act or anything like that, because there wasn't a lot of equipment. So mainly it was routines, gags, makeup. We wanted to have a costume that looked decent by the time that we did the audition at the end, and that graduation performance, if any of you ever were in Venice and during those days, that was your audition for a job. It was your graduation also, and you got your diploma. But that was your audition. And I have to say it was pretty interesting. The people that went to clown college in my class were very talented. There was one guy named Howie Butin who played like 20 instruments. And he had come from a service kind of specialty too. He was very interested in what they now call autistic kids. Autism wasn't a real common word back in the 70s, but he had worked as a clown character with those children. He went back to that. He was so talented, but he did not get a contract, and he went back to Detroit and worked with autistic kids and some doctors who really knew what they were developing with autistic therapies, and worked in that in a long, long, long time together. And he was in the right place, doing the right thing for the right reason at the right time. So I guess I was too. So we get to the end of clown college. We've discovered all of our gags. We've done our routines. We've gotten a makeup, and that's a hard thing. We didn't have video cameras. We couldn't see how we looked from afar. The only way we could see how our faces looked from afar was in a mirror at the back of the, if I'm looking at the back, it would be a mirror. You can't see how your face works. So we had to rely on each other, and Bobby Kay was a makeup teacher. And he helped us a lot with figuring out how to use our faces to speak more broadly with our expressions to the people that are going to be filling those great sports arenas. And it was very exciting. And then as you mug, you mug a lot, you know what position you put your face in to make a certain expression. You get musculature in your face, and your makeup will morph a little bit as you get more smile lines, which are now called smile lines. And your makeup would have to follow the changes in the structure on your face as your muscles in your face developed, right? So all of that happened over 10, 11 weeks, and then came this great, you want to get to the end of clown college, and the last 3 days, and I got my cast off 3 days before the final show. So 3 days in and 3 days out, and in the middle I was in a cast, right? I was very busy though, yeah. And it was great. And I thought, oh, this is all coming to an end, and they're going to go on the road, and I'm not. But I understood that, and I agreed to that, and by virtue of them letting me stay. So Mr. Valentine came to me, and I got my cast off, and you hobble more without the cast than you do with the cast. Those old plaster casts, we would go down to the beach, and I'd put a trash can liner and tape it around really, 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 really good on my calf, like there was anything wrong with my calf. No, it was my foot. So we went out wading in the water, and all of a sudden I see this white stuff in the water. I walked myself right out of the cast. It disintegrated in the Gulf of Mexico. So I now call those the waters of Peggy. Somewhere there's plaster from my cast. And now I had to go, get another cast put on twice during that time. But anyway, you learn, right? You learn. I didn't have a pool in Wisconsin. I didn't know. So 3 days before the end, I had put together a routine, and they said, well, we want you to at least make an appearance in the show for the graduation so we can get you in the picture that you were here. And I'm good with all that. And then Mr. Ballantyne said, no, we want you to do you have any gag ready or anything? I had a dilapidated ballerina with when I would point my toes, that foam rubber came out to here, and then I'd try to step on it and it would squish down. And if you watched the foot, it was funny. But if you watch me trying to balance, and when the foot went, it wasn't all that funny, but it worked, I guess. And so then, so that's on a Saturday night, that graduation. And it's bittersweet, and because it's coming to an end, and even if people do go on the road, they may not be on the same show, and our togetherness as a unit, having learned all these things, is going away. And it was bittersweet. So on Sunday morning, the people who were going to get a contract, Mr. Ballantyne went with his station wagon and went around and picked up people, took them over to the Venice Arena, sat them in the gray seats that were there, and you would wait your turn, and Mr. Feld would be up in his Windows of the World office. He had a little office that had windows that went in two directions, and he could see at any moment, if he opened his curtains, he could see what was going on for rehearsal. So he was right there. He knew everything going on. And Israel Feld was there, and Kenneth Feld was there, and it was pretty amazing. But so Mr. Ballantyne comes to my apartment, and he knocks on the door, and this is early Sunday morning, and I went, I am not expecting company. So I went to the door, and I peeked through the little hole, and he said, I want to take you over to talk with Mr. Feld. And I said, no, I'm not eligible for a contract, you remember? And he said, yes, Mr. Feld would like to speak with you. I'll come back in 10 minutes, so get yourself ready, and I'll come back in 10 minutes and get in the car. And so I shut the door, and I went, what? So he did come back. I got ready. I jumped in the car. I went over there. I sat in the gray seats. They were padded with about that much padding, right, for the audience. That's why standing ovations were so easy there, because everybody wanted to get up a little bit. They didn't have a whole lot of rubber underneath them, and they were pretty perfunctory for arena seats. So at any rate, so I go over, and then I'm waiting, and I'm wondering why. I can't imagine this. So finally, it was my turn. I go up those, and the steps became really deep. When it's your turn to walk up the steps to talk to primarily Mr. Irvin Feld, because he was running the show that day, and I went in there, and he said, have a seat, and I sat down. He said, how's your foot? And I said, it's going to be fine, and it's fine. You don't complain, right? You're glad to be there. And he said, so I'd like to offer you a contract with the Red Unit, which was the first one going out that year. I'd like to offer you a contract. And I said, oh, but I'm not eligible for a contract. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, because I broke my foot, I couldn't take all the and I went through the whole reason why he couldn't hire me. And then I decided to shut up. Because he had a contract, and he pulled it out of a folder, and he kind of slid it toward me, and he said, well, here's one thing you're going to learn. Show business is not a democracy. I own the show, and I want to offer you a contract. And I thought, game changer. Now I had to okay, maybe I need to cancel that Greyhound bus for the next day. And so it was interesting. I was just dumbfounded. Now my dad was a lawyer. He had made a pact with my brother and I that anytime we would ever sign our names on a contract, he had to read it first. This is before faxes, emails, this is 1970, right? And this is a piece of paper with my name already written on it, and the salary already written on it, and the length of the season already written on it. And what's going through my mind is, okay, I was ineligible for 10 and a half weeks, and now I have a full-time job for a year? Whoa, I can pay off so much college debt on that. And then I looked at that, well, maybe not so much. But you take it, and I said, yes. I said, yes, I would love to work for you. Now I knew there weren't girl clowns, and so I knew this was going to be really exciting, right? And he took his pen out of his pocket, and it was a beautiful pen. Really beautiful. I never held a pen like that. It had weight to it, and it had meaning behind it, and I signed that contract, and then I signed my copy of it, and so then I was like, oh my gosh, I just got a full-time job. I went from ineligible to employed in about a minute. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I went back to, they dropped me off and said, you show up in 2 or 3 weeks or whatever the time period was. I can't remember exactly. And you show up for rehearsals, right? That's a whole other story because wow, it was all about gender there. At any rate, I get to the payphone near where the apartment where I was living. And my, we always carried a roll of quarters, right? Anybody remember? It was always payphones, and you hope they didn't have gum, and pages were stuck together, and people had used it for wiping off lipstick and everything, the phone books. Oh, yeah, well, just stick with the phones. Any young people here, stick with the iPhones. It's great. So I went with my roll of quarters, and I called my parents. And I know how they were answering the phone at my home because we had 2 telephones, one upstairs and one downstairs, and they all had the crinkly cord, and if you stretched them both, you could meet on the stairway. You could see each other if you're both talking. So I called Collective, of course, and I called, they said, no, we'll accept the charges. And I said, no, I have quarters. So you get the little ding on the quarters, and you're going to run out of time. And anyway, I said, Mom, Dad, I got a full-time job. I'm going to be a circus clown. I'm going to work for Ringling Brothers in Barnum and Bailey. I'm going to live on a train. I've signed my contract. I'm coming home on the Greyhound so I can get ready to go. I'm going to be on the road. I have rehearsals in November, December, and we're going to go to New York and California and all the places I couldn't afford to go to. And I was so excited, and my dad, I think he and my mom probably approached that landing where they could both see each other, and I think he probably did the wait a minute, and he said, you signed a what? I'm so thrilled, and he's like, we have a deal. And he said, well, how much are you going to make? And I told him, and he went, okay, you bring that contract home, we're going to look at that. I said, but congratulations, you got a full-time job, and not everybody who gets out of 4 years of college gets a full-time job in less than 3.5 months. From another school, right? So I did my graduate work at Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Clown College in Venice, Florida, and I got a job. So I went back to Wisconsin, said goodbye to everybody, came down, and my parents were like, and who's in the cast? And my dad, a World War II veteran, he was a little concerned. Bulgarians, Romanians, people from behind the Iron Curtain, and he's like, he didn't know what to say because he didn't know anything about the circus either. So it all worked out great for 48 years, really. So I get down to rehearsals, and this is where the rubber really hit the road because rehearsals used to be so simple. Mr. Barstow was our director, and Bill Bradley was our choreographer. And if you have ever seen, they had this down. They'd been doing this for years. They had Broadway credits and background, but they did the circus every year, and it was great. And but there was this one phrase I kept hearing when I would walk away from the casting table there. There was Don Foote there, who is a costume designer who has just done amazing costumes. And his comment was, whoa, she ought to be able to hold a heavy costume. Because I'm pretty strong, and I'm pretty tall, and I've got broad shoulders, and I'm not a dancer. So I got heavy costumes. And but Mr. Barstow kept saying, okay, girls in ring 1 and clowns in ring 3. And so because I'm a girl, I went to ring 1. Oh, no. You have to go to ring, you're a clown. They didn't know even how to reference me, so I went over to the clowns. The next day, it was for costume fitting. Girls in ring 1, clowns, and I went to the clown. No, you go with the girls. I'm like, and every time I walked away from that table, I'd hear, what are we going to do with the girl? I heard that for, especially when it came to dressing rooms. I wasn't allowed in ladies' wardrobe because I had powder on my, the baby powder that you use. And it just was not, you couldn't be in ladies' wardrobe with that baby powder being fresh because it would tarnish the very many sequins that were on the costumes. That made them very heavy. So I had very many sequins on my costumes because I could carry a lot of costume. And then I had an argument kind of with Don Foote, you know, because he had been doing all these female characters for so long. Like Dwayne Thorpe was a great drag clown, and Lou, and they had all these big in the front and big in the back. And I'm like, I got my own. I don't need that. I just want to do lady characters, right? I finally figured out I wanted to experiment with lady characters, and I did not want to do it in drag because that was like learning from someone to unlearn it to get back to who I am, right? So I was going through this. They were going, what are we doing with the girl? What are we going to do? And Don Foote was so happy. I stood tall. I had broad shoulders. Mr. Barstow was like, what are we going to do with the girl? And Bill says, I'll figure some choreography she can do with a 35-pound costume. Okay, and I'm like, 35 pounds, oh my gosh. Anyway, it all worked out. I had a little dressing room sometimes, just a little piece of a curtain in an angle of in a corner of a room, because I had my clown trunk in there, and I couldn't be in with the clowns, I couldn't be in with the girls. So I was like, what do we do with the girl? And they went through this every building until we finally got, Mike Gorman was assistant performance director to Bob Dover in those days, and he was in charge of finding the girl a place to put the girl's trunk. And so we became good friends because he always tried to put me in a safe place where, you know, my stuff was safe when I was out there. So that year I was the only girl. So did you have a question?
I'm just sitting here on it.
I don't know where we're at on the list of questions.
Yeah, well, let's see. Okay. You got on the road. How was the accommodations?
Oh, small.
Oh, small.
You know, a lot of things were small in the 70s, and my room was one of them. It was amazing. I was in a bunk. This was one of the, so some of the train cars that came to Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey were retired Army hospital cars. And so there were bunks on both sides and a hallway down the middle, but there was the only privacy that you had, like to lock things up, like your money and stuff, was a built-in box, a wooden box with a kind of like one of those old writing tables, but in box size, and it was above your feet where you would sleep. So there's a bunk on the bottom, a curtain across the long side, a window, a louvered window. Those are long gone. Louvered means if you open the louvers, the soot comes in on the trip. So that's different now. At any rate, it's called a Crumb Box. And that was what we called it on the Circus, at least. And the flap would come down, and there'd be 2 chains, and you could put your valuables in there, and there's a hasp with a lock that you would have the combination or the key to. That was where you put all your valuables. And then there was maybe that wide of a closet right next to your bunk. And then there's a bunk on top, too. So you can sit up in your bunk, but you certainly couldn't stand up in it because there's another bunk on top. And it was small. And it was very communal because it was the single ladies' car. So it wasn't just the girl clown, what are we going to do with the girl, and the dancers, but ladies that worked in wardrobe. There was, I think, a contortionist that was in there, and another single lady who had worked in an act, and she didn't qualify for a stateroom because real estate is really precious, and you have to negotiate for it on the circus trade. So we were all in there, we all had bunks, and we shared those little itty-bitty refrigerators, and stole each other's food and did all that stuff that you get with communal living when everybody doesn't know how to do that yet, and we got the rules down. It was small, but you didn't stay there that long. You slept there. You didn't entertain there. You entertained in an arena because clearly you had that many friends, right? I don't know. So that's kind of, small. It was small that year. And then they retired that car, and I got a roomette that had a sliding door, like kind of a pocket door that slides, and then I could lock the whole thing, which was awesome. And that was a little bit more storage, and that was floor to ceiling. That was better. It got better and better and better as I changed my jobs throughout my time there.
Okay, so we are going to focus on a few things.
Okay.
And you may pick out of this assortment of positions you've had, which ones you want to talk about.
Okay.
And we do have...
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, you were a boss clown.
Well,
Wait,
for the Girl Clown Alley,
Yeah.
which is really small. was my own boss. Right?
Okay.
Took clowns
Okay,
and
we've defined what a boss clown you did. Okay, you were part of the Department of Educational Services.
Yeah.
You were assistant performance director for the Blue Unit. You went to Japan with the only living unicorn.
I did.
You did on that as the first performance director.
I was the first female performance director, so I had this like path I was following. I was the first girl to get kicked out of clown college, but I stayed. And I wasn't eligible, and I got a contract, and I was the first girl clown, and then first girl. I was not keeping track of all this, but the media people were.
Yeah,
So
and then you ended up being a teacher at Clown College.
in a number of years, I would go down there and teach how to deal with the media. Can I tell my media story really quick?
You may tell your media story.
I mean, I have a few, but I have one.
You have one?
I have one that I
One.
want to share because you know what? You think when you're doing an interview with a newspaper or whatever, which this happened to be a newspaper, this incident that took place in Berkeley, California, on the steps of City Hall, surrounded by the Berkeley campus, right? If you've ever been there, it's a really beautiful place. The steps go up, and then there's a platform, and then there's more steps that go up. And so that was where the interview was, and I was in my clown costume, and the local publicist had come to pick me up, and I didn't know who that was until I got in the car. So you kind of have to take it for granted. You know, someone's going to pick you up in front of your train car, and so get ready. I had my costume at the train, my spare costume for PR, and I got in the car and we went, and oh, we're going to do that. There was nothing circusy in the background or anything. It was City Hall, right? It was where laws get made and where courts happen and all that. And so we were up on that platform, midway up this long set of stairs. And one of the women who's a staff writer for the Berkeley, whatever their newspaper is for the college there, she was interviewing me, and it was all about the women's rights movement, right? It was all about, oh, you break the glass ceiling, and I said, watch out for the shards. They're all over the place. She said, we did the interview, the same questions I usually always got, you know, why'd you get into it? What's it like? You know, and all that cool stuff. And then she said, there's one picture we really want to get to end the interview. We would really like to do this. And so she went like that, and a guy came over rolling a big trash can on wheels, rolled it over to the middle of where we were. So now there's me in clown makeup and her in her little writing thing with the little paper that flips over the steno notebook, and this big thing. And then there was another guy that came in from the other side, and he came and brought the world's biggest bra. I mean, that big. And a lighter, you know, like some kind of lighter. And you know, bra burning was like a symbolic thing then, not for me, but she said, this is going to be the picture. Because they wanted the picture that would go nationally, right? That's what media always wants. They want the hot story. And I said, what is this? And you know, when you're a clown, you have to represent the show, and you have to represent yourself, and you watch your language, and you watch your reactions and everything. And she said, we want you to burn this bra over this trash can in front of City Hall. That's the picture we want. I said, you know what? The interview's over. I can't do that. That's not me. I'm not here to make a political speech, nor to join a movement, or there were so many movements running around, and I said, no, I'm here representing Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, and I'm a clown, and we don't get political. We entertain families across America. Thank you so much for interviewing me, and the interview's over. And I walked away from the trash can. I didn't want any pictures of me in the trash can or them burning the bra with me in the picture, and that was just ridiculous. And I learned a lot that day. I learned that all best intentions can get thwarted by personal politics somewhere, whether it's media or whatever. And they were really disappointed. And I got back in the car with the publicist who took me back to the building, to the arena. I said, I'm going to get fired. Mr. Feld's going to fire me. I didn't finish the interview. I didn't do it. And she said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. She didn't know what to do either. She did not see that coming. This is not part of the thing. And I was like, of all places, you know, a really hotbed of activity, same as I was used to in Wisconsin and wanted to get away from. And there I am in Berkeley, getting right back into it, you know. But sometimes you have to say no. You just have to say no. That's not me. I don't do that. I won't make that statement, and I won't do that picture. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And I'm going to go to the unemployment line.
Yes.
But I didn't get fired. I actually, they said I did the right thing. So that was self-taught.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, nobody prepared me for that. And we had some good publicists. We had dear Jack Ryan, who passed away about a year and a half ago, and he was our national publicist. We had people that could teach us that, but no one saw that coming. It was like, oh no. Anyway.
We're coming close to the end, but one thing I want to make sure everyone knows that in 1998, you were inducted into the International Clown Hall of Fame.
I was so proud of that. Up in Baraboo, Wisconsin, yes, or was actually in Milwaukee at that time, but yeah, it's
And how do you get nominated?
by peers, I believe. I think it's all peer. You don't sign up yourself. It's not like Who's Who in America where they send you a thing and you pay your way into it. No, this is all peer related, and it was a big surprise that when that happened, the show sent some of the clowns from the show to be there to support me with that. It was really fun.
Wow, on that. We have a pair of shoes here.
We do. This is so important. So it's important to me because of my opportunity as an apprentice. We had 3 years of apprenticeship contracts, and one of the things that we had to purchase, of course, was our own wigs and makeup and shoes and everything. And one of my opportunities with Lou Jacobs is I was assigned to be his apprentice, which meant I helped him get his props ready for his gags. And one of the best ones was the big hay wagon, where there was a person sitting on top of this entirely filled hay wagon, and he was trying to get the last pitchfork full of hay on top of it. And I had to go out and get the pony, because it was a real pony hitch. One pony would pull that thing around the hippodrome track. And I would lead that pony, but I had to go out and unhook it and brush it, and I had to do a lot of labor with that pony. And the guys in the the animal compound knew that pony liked to bite, and they just said, yeah, sometimes he bites. And his name was Capro. And I one time I did get bitten. I bent over at the wrong place, and they are like, I told you. And there goes $1, right? You know, it would happen today, right? Anyway, I brought the pony in, and I never did that move in that position again, and hooked it up to the hay wagon. And the gag was, Lou liked his stuff there about 10 minutes early backstage. He liked everything set, and then he would stand and he would just wait for the cue music, and then he was on. And so I had 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes every show to talk to Lou, or listen to Lou, or ask him questions. And so I showed him, this is my clown shoes from way back in the 70s. These were made by Griffin Clown Shoe Company, and that's long gone. But I was showing him, I said, Lou, I don't know what to do, because I have a hole in the bottom of my clown shoes. And he says, don't confuse that with the hole in your soul. If you wear clown shoes that long that you get a hole in it, it's going to stay with you a long time. You're going to be in the circus for a long time. That's a good thing. There's the hole. And in this one, there's the horsehair, the stuffing coming right out the other end. They used to stuff it with horsehair, and I use these for education purposes. I'm not going to get it fixed, because nobody can show you horsehair like that, because now there's foam rubber, and it's a whole different thing, right? But these were the originals, so I love these. And he said, when you get a hole in your soul, it's a good thing, right? And I love Lou for that. But he taught me so many things, and he was the first person that was really a true mentor to me. We were told, these are your mentors. Bobby Kay for my wardrobe and costume and my look, and to be able to do small stuff for PR. And Danny Chapman at Clown College, and Lou Jacobs on the road, and Dwayne Thorpe on the road, how to be big in the ring. Because Dwayne, if he did anything, he was a big guy, but he knew how to, high up there, you know, he knew how to emote. And he taught me that, because I didn't know. You don't know until you know there's an audience up there, and if you ignore them, they don't think you're a funny clown. They may not think you're funny, but you at least have to connect with them and wave to the kids up there. So I was very fortunate. I would take this ride all over again, but that ride is gone to the world. The ride is gone. The train cars are gone. The circus, the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey is gone. And any of you in the audience who saw it, what a blessing for you and for those of us who worked in it, what a blessing for us that we were able to participate in this town without a zip code and living on the train from little rooms to big rooms and to all these things that went on. And I just have to thank you for letting me share a few stories here, because it's been nice, and you are a great audience. You guys are just great. I see some heads nodding every now and then when I mention, like, if I mention the word Donaker, who's going to head?
Yeah.
Okay, see, there's a lot of words that are inside, right?
Yes.
We got vestibule. Yo, wow. So many stories.
Well, and obviously, we're going to have to bring the clowns back again to be able to tell all their stories, which we've just sort of scratched the surface on. But Peggy, thank you so very much for
Thank you.
doing
It's an
this.
opportunity. Thank you.